You guys ever look at a movie that has all these hundreds of millions of dollars going to the budget, and then you just think to yourself, wow, that looks like ass. I mean, besides the fact that it's like a live-action rendition of a previously animated film that was fantastic, by the way, now established to be a prequel to that terrible live-action version of that movie, it makes you wonder, how did we get this far? I mean, I will give the movie this, it has an all-star cast, it has Childish Gambino, I like that guy's music, that's pretty cool, and yep, it has Seth Rogen as Pumbaa again, which has always been a bizarre choice to me. I mean, the lead guy is Pumbaa? Dude, this movie's actually goated. I have to be real though, who really thought this movie was going to be promising? I mean, I guess if you're like the biggest Lin-Manuel Miranda fan of all time, then sure, he wrote the music for this film. I feel like I need a friend to talk to describe how weird this movie is. Which means it's time for our sponsor, Polybuzz. But first, the sponsor to this video, Polybuzz. So there I was, bored out of my mind, watching an episode of Family Guy, admiring the brilliance of Brian Griffin, when I thought to myself, hey, what if I could talk to Brian Griffin? That's where Polybuzz comes in. An app that allows you to talk to various original characters, or established characters, but not only that, you can create some of your own characters as well. You could really create unlimited conversations and never get bored. Look, I'm talking to Brian, he's greeting me with "it's peanut butter jelly time." I tell him I love you, Brian. He tells me, love you too, buddy. Next I asked Brian what his thoughts on Quagmire were, and he said this: Quagmire is definitely one of my favorite characters. I mean, who can't love a character like him? He's got a massive sex drive, and he always seems to get into the funniest situations. Thank you, Brian, that's awesome. I then asked him what his thoughts were on Peter, and he said this: he has his moments where he's not too bad, and it's fun watching him get in trouble or do dumb things, but at the end of the day, I can't stand him. Brian, how could you say that about Peter? When I tell him that Zeepster making money is awesome, he tells me exactly? Dude, he's basically my new best friend. Right now you could use the code STIRRED by searching the code in Polybuzz to unlock premium features. Just use the code in description so you can talk to any historical figure, cartoon character, or even create your own original character as well. And use the code STIRRED. Thanks to Polybuzz for sponsoring this video. Mufasa and Scar run around singing songs, and I gotta be real, I like Lin-Manuel's work, but the songs sound fairly unimaginative.
And my brother, pray may run away, but they can't hide.
What's also crazy as well is that the director of this film, Barry Jenkins, is actually a well-established filmmaker. He created Moonlight, which received wide critical acclaim, and also won Best Pictures at the Oscars for it. It makes me feel kind of bad because I really feel like there's parts that are clearly not his ideas, that are unwelcome, but had to be put in there because, well, it's Disney, and also a Disney prequel. This clash between the sensibilities of one of the greatest living filmmakers and the rigid directives of a studio that's more or less monopolizing Hollywood's spurred tension within the film. To be fair, it's the kind of tension that makes for a fascinating post-viewing analysis, even though it didn't always translate to an enjoyable experience. To make matters worse, Mufasa the Lion King faces overwhelming box office competition from Sonic the Hedgehog 3, and well, they're losing that battle. While Disney has undeniably enjoyed a banner year, adding both Inside Out 2 and Deadpool Wolverine to the hyper-exclusive billion-dollar club, closing out 2024 by being humbled by Paramount, which is not necessarily the most substantial studio in the world right now, has to sting. The story centers on a young duo of male lions, Mufasa and Taka, who are driven away from their homes by a ruthless, warmongering lion. Along the way, the brothers grow together, while the story bridges time and memory. I will say this, the story isn't completely unimaginative. It's better than rehashing events like what the live-action Lion King did, but the movie isn't really particularly special with its plot as well. This movie is also shot by James Laxton, who helped out Barry Jenkins with Moonlight and uses similar visual elements. However, the striking close-ups that work so beautifully in Moonlight, which are human-centric films, don't necessarily translate every time it's used on photorealistic CGI lions. I'm glad Laxton and Jenkins win for it anyway, because I guess it makes it a little more interesting, but it's still not perfect. Speaking of which, photorealistic animation seems to have at least made a little progress over the past 5 years, with Mufasa the Lion King emerging a little more vibrant and expressive compared to Jon Favreau's piece of shit, The Lion King. The animals in the movie are ever so slightly anthropomorphized, able to have much more expressive faces, and the overall color palette is a little more brighter and more vivid, which makes the film feel a little more engaging. That said, photorealistic animation still faces growing pains and will likely continue to evolve over the next 5 to 10 years before it gains broader acceptance, assuming Disney remains committed to producing films in this style. However, the advancements showcased here still doesn't feel like this movie was made with over $200 million. The movie is noticeably one of the less fun things I've watched in a while. I'm gonna have to compare it with Sonic 3, the other movie I watched that weekend. Yes, of course I'm going to compare the two as they're both major kids movies released on the same day, but it does have more to say. While Sonic the Hedgehog 3 attempts to meditate on the cycle of loss, grief, and revenge, Mufasa the Lion King tackles themes of colonialism and its generational impact on families. There are clear allegories for colonial forces that devastated Africa over centuries, and the grand figures whose influence disrupted the harmony of the Pride Lands. As someone who got a degree in history, I found this aspect of the movie to be one of the more interesting aspects. Not only that, but I would argue that the film's exploration of the Shakespearean schism between brothers and its depiction of colonialism largely succeeds. These themes are compellingly shown, not to a degree where it's like terrible, even if there are a decent amount of stumbles. I feel like every time I try to enjoy this movie, or at least give it a chance, I'm largely taken out of it because of, well, the animation. The live actionness of it all, it's just too much for me. It doesn't look good, makes my eyes want to like vomit, and even beyond that, it feels as if the movie is determined to deflate any momentum it builds, just so Timon and Pumbaa could make a couple jokes, and also for the narrative focus to just be fumbled all over the place. That's the weird thing about Mufasa the Lion King. It stands out in Disney's lineup as the first spin-off of one of its live-action remakes, marking an intriguing development for the studio. Disney seems determined to keep the live-action remake machine churning, with the upcoming Lilo and Stitch and Snow White both set to release within the next 6 months. And yep, you know they're going to suck. The question now is whether Mufasa the Lion King signals the start of a wave of prequels, spin-offs, and sequels to Disney's live-action adaptations. Had this movie proven a financial success, it's easy to imagine projects exploring the backstories of characters like King Triton or Mother Gothel being announced within the year. However, the film struggled to compete at the box office, losing decisively to Sonic the Hedgehog 3, a movie from a smaller studio with a significantly lower budget, and may I add, a movie that looks way better than Mufasa the Lion King. $200 million versus $122 million makes me doubt that possibility. In 5 years, this film will likely be remembered not as a pivotal moment in Disney's live-action canon, but as an interesting artifact, a bold experiment that failed to secure its place in the zeitgeist. And to that I say, good, I don't want to think of these movies anymore. Every time they do another live-action film, whether it be Snow White and it looking like complete garbage, or Lilo and Stitch and that also looking like complete garbage, I'm just like, why do we keep paying to watch these? I don't want to see Seth Rogen Pumbaa, guys. It's not awesome, it sucks. I don't want to see Will Smith as Genie, because that's also not awesome, and it also double sucks. Okay, like, comment, subscribe, I love you guys. See you guys soon for a very big video. Year in review, here we come.